Welcome back to the news at 10. Let's move over to our Abuja studios with Ibrahim Adra, who's got a couple more stories for us. Ibrahim.
Gimbo, always good to see you. Now, the Senate has blocked a request for a $350 million external loan by the Kaduna state government. The request is contained in the 2016-2018 external borrowing plan of President Muhammadu Buhari. The Senate's decision follows the recommendation of its Committee on Local and Foreign Debt that the loan request be rejected because the new borrowing sought will make the debt service ratio high, thereby worsening the state government's ability to meet its other obligations to the people of the state. Correspondent Linda Kiwe reports.
The matter before federal lawmakers at plenary is a request for a $350 million loan for the Kaduna state government. The credit facility was approved by the World Bank in 2016, and it is captured in the 2016 to 2018 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, MTEF. The loan is proposed to finance critical infrastructure and help stimulate internally generated revenue in Kaduna state. However, the Committee on Local and Foreign Debt do not approve this borrowing.
Kaduna state has a total debt stock of $232 million, making it the second most indebted state in Nigeria. 5, that approving the current loan request of $350 million for Kaduna state will bring its total debt stock to $582 million. That if this loan request is approved, the new debt total stock of $582 million for Kaduna state will be unsustainable and necessarily attract huge financial burden on the meager federal allocation to the state.
Lawmakers from Kaduna state also voiced strong opposition to the loan.
The money received in Kaduna state is much, and I could not understand that it's not happening in Kaduna state completely. They are busy retiring people, sacking people, and you are asking for loan to do what with the loan?
I crave the indulgence of our colleagues that the application of that loan, among other things, is indeed a misplaced priority, as we have clearly seen, and hence I strongly stand behind the prayer of the chairman of the committee that this very important chamber do reject that request for the loan. I so move.
Say aye.
After the contributions from lawmakers, the Senate went on to reject the request for a $350 million external loan by the Kaduna state government. Although the Committee on Local and Foreign Debts rejected the loan on the basis that it would put a strain on Kaduna state and further erode the economic viability of the state, it is, however, not surprising that all the Kaduna state lawmakers are opposed to the loan, as they have been locked in a fierce power tussle with the state governor, Nasir El-Rufai. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, Kaduna state government has described the Senate's refusal to approve its $350 million World Bank loan facility as the high point of political vendetta by those elected to represent the interests of the citizens and a huge setback to the state's infrastructural development drive. In an interview with Channels Television, the State Commissioner for Budget and Planning, Mohammed Abdullahi, says despite the fact that the loan had already been approved by the World Bank and the Federal Executive Council, the federal lawmakers decided to deny the people of the state the opportunity to develop their infrastructure based on the reasons given by the 3 senators from the state. While stating that the World Bank agreed to provide the facility after checking the laws, accounts and performance of the state, the Budget Commissioner explains that the intention of seeking for the $350 million loan is to bridge the state's huge infrastructural deficits, which include renovation of dilapidated schools, hospitals, roads, as well as achieving its governance objectives in the short to medium-term period.
We came into this government with a huge deficit in terms of infrastructure in the state across the various local governments. Our schools are in very dilapidated conditions, our hospitals, and this is the resources that this money was meant to address. We are quite sad that the people of Kaduna State will be affected by this denial of the Senate, because these are monies that are meant to cater for projects in every single local government in Kaduna State. These are works that are ongoing. There is no local government today where we do not have a project that is ongoing: schools, hospitals, roads. In our own calculation, and together with the World Bank and the Ministry of Finance, these are projects that have the cumulative effect of really opening up Kaduna State as an economic hub. As you know, this is one of the key areas that we have been trying to push. And so it is really quite sad and surprising that senators elected from a state to represent the interests of its people would gang up and deny the people of the state the opportunity to develop.
Let's return to our Lagos studio, where Gimbai is standing by for the rest of news at 10. Good evening.
Brilliant. Many thanks indeed, Ibrahim. The federal government's quest for food security appears to be yielding positive results in the economy, with its intervention in rice farming propping up production by 3.7% annually. However, reports have shown that the country continues to rely on importation of the product to meet growing demand. On our big story tonight, Channels Television's business correspondent Temple Ashaju examines the factors responsible for this trend.
A new report released by advisory services firm PwC shows global rice production at an annual average of 1% over a decade to 486.7 million tons in 2017. In Nigeria, rice remains a staple for nearly every household to the tune of 6.4 million tons against local production of 3.7 million tons. This follows government's interventions in the area of inputs such as seedlings and fertilizer, as well as land incentives and irrigation projects.
500 around here. The total amount of rice farm we have in the Northern Senatorial District on our Ayade farm is 10,000 hectares. 10,000 hectares is a whole lot. And I'm sure I can retire as a governor into my rice farm, and I will be a very happy man.
In doing this, we provide food for our people. In doing this, we provide jobs for our people. And in doing this, we grow our economy.
Since the central bank rice-focused interventions over the past 5 years, Nigeria's rice imports have declined 33.3% to 2.7 million tons last year. Despite the decline, Nigeria remains Africa's single largest rice importer from Asia.
It's depending on Nigeria policy. Yes, right now, I have to say right now, yes. That's why we have to export to Benin first, and then let some Benin customer transit to Nigeria.
Government has played its role, but the government implementation agencies like the customs need to tell Nigerians why there is so much smuggled rice in Nigeria.
At this meeting of the Presidential Task Force on Rice with dealers, the vexed issues of pricing and smuggling came to the fore.
We are expecting you people to help us by making a lot of sacrifices on prices, bringing down the price, so the difference wouldn't be much.
By the time we start selling at 11,000, 12,000, no Cotonou will ever enter. Nobody will take money to go and bribe any customer.
What we take away from that is that we are going to work with all the stakeholders, the farmers, the millers, the rice distributors, so that each and everyone will be making money, and then we'll be able to deliver Nigerian rice to the populace.
While dealers seek answers to the supply gaps through incentives, some experts think otherwise.
No, we will not support subsidizing. The experience we've had about subsidy brings in corruption. And Nigerian farmers, Nigerian processors, Nigerian businessmen are astute enough, are strong enough to be able to sell.
We have low irrigation in terms of rice, even in terms of mechanization as well. We are one of the lowest countries, at least among the major rice consumers, that has a deficit of tractors, harvesters, even seedlings, even pesticides and all that. So there are a number of inputs that we are lacking in Nigeria that we need to address.
Out of 20 millers registered by RIPAM, at least 18 of us can still do the same thing based on the availability of irrigated land. The rice we are growing, Faro 44, is 3 months harvest, which is relatively good. That means we can do 3 cycles in a year. And with that one, with the capacity of 2,000 hectares of land of each one of us, I think we should be able to meet the demand of the Nigerian consumer latest end of this year.
With vast opportunities in the Nigerian rice market, there's need to do more in the sector in order to achieve more self-sufficiency. Temple Oshaju, Channels Television News.
Let's move on to business news with Anwar Wado.
You first. First Bank.
Thank you, Gimba. As reactions continue to trail Nigeria's decision not to sign the Continental Free Trade Area framework agreed by 44 African countries last week, the African Development Bank and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa have jointly pledged to support the deal and integrate Africa. The president of AFDB, Mr. Akinwumi Adesina, says he expects the deal to stimulate intra-African trade by up to $35 billion annually, create a 52% increase in trade by 2022, and a $10 billion decrease in imports outside Africa. As for the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission, Vera Songwe, the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement will become operational as soon as all member states ratify it for full implementation. The African Export-Import Bank is expected to arrange between $1 billion and $1.5 billion to help support businesses and investments in Zimbabwe. This was announced by the president of the bank, Dr. Benedict Orama, at the Africa CEO Forum in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. The facilities will be arranged under Zim Open, which is an inward investment support facility put in place by Afrexim Bank in collaboration with the government of Zimbabwe. According to him, the Zim Open is aimed at de-risking eligible inward investment into Zimbabwe, catalyzing trade finance inflow, and increasing dollar liquidity to help create a good business environment for investors. As most financial markets close for the Easter holidays, the local bulls made a U-turn to positive territory today, recovering 252 billion naira today after posting a string of losses this week. Let's hear more from Layo Adegoke.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Thursday's trading session at the NSE ends the last trading day of March and the first quarter of 2018 with a strong 1.72% rebound in the market's main index following price recovery in key bellwether equities. Traders attribute the market's last-minute rally after steady declines in the last 3 sessions to short-term investors cashing in on the drop in the price of some big-cap equities on the market. However, the activity chart recorded over 270 million units of shares, the lowest volume turnover in the entire 4 sessions this week, with Zenith Bank, Sky Bank and UBA as the main volume drivers. Custodian emerged the highest price gainers out of 23 advances, up nearly by 10%, while C&I leasing topped a list of 26 losers with a 9.47% in the share price. And that's the Stock Market Report. I am Layo Adegoke.
Thanks a lot, Layo. A rebound in the share of tech giant Facebook and Google's parent company Alphabet lifted U.S. stocks today. But let's see, for other stocks, they ended mostly positive. That's Business News Tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwaudu.